Welcome to Breaking Solo, how solopreneurs break barriers, build brands, and embrace the future of business.
Welcome, everybody, back to Breaking Solo. Appreciate you being here. I'm very excited today. My guest is Stuart Webb. And Stuart, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you for having me here. Really looking forward to this.
Awesome. So tell the audience who you are, what you do.
Okay, so my name's Stuart Webb. I am a solopreneur. I've been working with other business leaders now for about the last 12 years. And I specialize in helping them to do to grow their business. I've worked with people who are trying to merge and acquire businesses. I've worked with people who are growing businesses from small startups through to larger organizations. And I brand myself as the scientific value business growth mentor. And the reason I do that is because I started my career as a scientist. I did a number of scientific degrees. And after I'd done all of those, I realized that I was actually more interested in entrepreneurial business. And so rather than sticking with a career being a scientist, I left the scientific world behind. But I've taken a lot of those principles about how you use those scientific principles to really drive value into businesses since I've got those skills and I decided to use them.
Well, that is pretty much amazing. I don't know. I don't know how you did that.
Well, we could spend the next several hours talking about that, Donna, but I'll give you the highlights of it as we're talking, I promise.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. So, so you didn't always know you were going to be a solopreneur. You kind of pivoted from.
I pivoted. Yeah, I pivoted. And the reason I pivoted actually was because I was a scientist. Scientific, it's largely sort of very singular, as you can imagine. You're on your own. You're late in the lab doing things. You're building on the skills that other people bring to the party. You have to build on the shoulders of giants, as they say. You don't invent everything yourself, but it's largely your own endeavor. And I was doing that, and then I suddenly kind of realized that actually the one thing I wanted to do was take some of this stuff that I had been doing and see it actually sort of contribute more directly, more quickly into the world than I had expected. I mean, I was working on some kind of obscure stuff, and I'd had some success. I'd published papers, I'd been to give talks, but none of that was going to sort of directly affect human beings in the next 5 years. It was all something that was going to be sort of 50 years down the line. And I just kind of thought to myself, I need to be doing something which is more direct, influences people today, not tomorrow.
Well, we're glad you did. So,
some of my customers say that as well, Donna. Not all of them, but some of them.
All right. So what's been the biggest challenge in your solopreneur journey?
Well, to start with, the big challenge was the fact that I had absolutely no business experience. So pretty much the first few things that I tried sort of crashed and burned. And I had to sort of learn what marketing was. And, marketing and sales are difficult to learn for somebody who's never been given any sort of sales training. But one of the things I lent on heavily as I started to understand what marketing and selling was about was that it was back to my sort of, I'm here to help other people. And it was by learning that actually that wasn't actually sort of the opposite of selling. That was what selling was for me. It was learning to say, my job is to help somebody do something. And if I can offer them the opportunity, I mean, I still explain it to people and they say, well, what do you mean by selling? And I go, well, if I've got a solution to a problem, all I have to do is go to somebody and say, you've got this problem. I have a solution. Would you like some help? And so long as you've identified your problems, your solution to their problem correctly, they are very likely to say, yes, please, I'd like help. So that then becomes the message of marketing and largely selling. The important thing to remember after that is saying, well, if you want that help, this is how much it will cost. And that was the sort of message that I eventually learned. It took me too long, but I did eventually learn that was what my job was to do.
Absolutely. I have told clients for years that most coaches and small business owners are afraid of sales. They don't want to be seen as a salesperson. It scares them to death. But I've always said, you have a gift to provide and you have an obligation
Yes.
over it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, Don. I love that message, obligation. Yeah, it is. If you have a solution and you're not offering that solution to people, then you're depriving them of the help that they so desperately want. Some people keep saying to me, they keep saying, well, I need to, how do I find them? And the answer is, well, to a large extent, if you've clearly identified what your solution is, you then start looking around for people who have got that problem. But too often you don't really understand the solution that you've got anyway, so it's difficult to identify them. So it starts with you being very clear about, this is my solution. Now, that might be a solution that's only available to, or might be only applicable to 3 or 4 people. Well, terrific, because niching is actually one of the secrets to this. If you try and offer your solution to everybody, it gets cheap.
So true. And you just broke into my next question, which was, how did you find your unique niche in the market?
So my unique niche actually sort of largely, as I started to say, my unique niche to a very large extent comes from the fact that I had a very unique start in this business, because I was coming from this scientific background, because I was learning how to become a business owner. I could recognize exactly those issues in so many of the people that I met, who were either technical managers who'd started a business, or who were people who had a really unique skill set and they'd started a business in order to try and give that solution they had to other people. But they didn't recognize, and I didn't recognize to begin with, how much of the ability you've got to have to sort of turn that into a different mindset. So I've started using some of those lessons that I learned as a scientist and how I overcame those. And that's how I sort of recognized that I was uniquely positioned to help people in those sort of situations.
Wow. See, I knew you'd get to the point where you explained how it all worked. So,
And you're right. It is about it. It does take a little while sometimes for people. They don't recognize. Too many business owners. I find so many business owners are trying to help everybody. Don't try and help everybody. You have to just recognize you have a unique skill set. So find the people that are the other uniques. If you're trying to help everybody, even Tony Robbins, who you would think is trying to help everybody, he is appealing to a very specific person. Not everybody will match with Tony Robbins. And because he's got so specific about who he's trying to help, he's made millions.
so true. So, what's a strategy that you use to stand out from the competition?
Well, we've just sort of talked about it a little bit. I'm very specific now in my message that I'm trying to help very particular people who are trying to grow a business. I'm talking to people who are, they are solopreneurs. I'm coming across people now who are solopreneurs and using things like AI. Now, I have some understanding of things like AI and systems, and that's one of the things I spend a lot of my time working with. But I'm coming across people now who are a solopreneur, but they're able to use systems, they're able to use automation, they're able to use things like AI to truly grow some very big businesses. They are beginning to be able to sort of take their unique understanding of a problem, and they don't need to employ 50, 60, 70 people for that problem to become quite a substantial business. So I'm working with them to find the big growth levers and find ways in order to sort of help them pull on those big growth levers without having to build very, very large teams, in order to help them get their message to those ideally placed people who have the problem that they solve.
Excellent. So, what industry trends do you think solopreneurs should be paying attention to now?
So I think there are 4 I'm going to sort of give you now to a large extent. The first is that one that I've just said, AI, the rise in artificial intelligence. And I don't think artificial intelligence in its own self helps without automation behind it, because you have to link automation to your AI. But AI is very good at helping to spot trends, spot problems, and help to highlight ways in which you could solve those problems. So I'm not talking about sort of writing blog posts and things like that, because I think that's not true AI. But using AI in order to be able to sort of do analysis of data and things like that, that's one that I think if you can understand and you can get to grips with, is a huge one. There's also the sort of the freedom economy. I think we're now beginning to recognize that we all can work from various places. Technology enables you to manage businesses with really minimal overhead. And there's now the authenticity, as I see it, that people want to work with people who are authentic. So if you can be more consumer authentic, you can help build big brands. And obviously that leads you to having a greater work-life harmony. So that's the great thing that I think that solopreneurs can really start to wonder now. You can work from the beach if you really want to, but don't forget that you actually have to stop working occasionally.
So true. Working on the beach, though, with a laptop doesn't sound like it's a good idea.
Well, I think you should put down and enjoy the view occasionally, Donna. Otherwise, there's a very good possibility you're never going to sort of look around and enjoy the time you've got. But for me, the best example that I found when I've been working is the old sort of if you take a jar and you put the big golf balls in the jar first, and then you put in the small pebbles, and last you fill it with the sand. You've got to focus on the big things first, whether or not that be family, friends, but also the big results area of your business. Do those first, get those out of the way. Then you can put some slightly more important stuff, sort of where am I going to live? Where am I going to be for the next few weeks? And at the end of it, sweat the small stuff, pour the small stuff in. You can fit it all in if you do it that way. But if you put the sand into the bottom of the jar first, you'll never put that many golf balls in, and you'll never put that many rocks in, because you've got them in the wrong order. So I focus on those big things: family life, the important 2 or 3 things that I have to do in my business every day. I get them scheduled in my business first, and then I would make sure that I put other things around it. If I don't do that, then I get distracted and I'm pulled off track. So I need to make sure that I've got those things put aside. I'm going to get those worked in the day, and then I can put other stuff around it. Otherwise, I just get pulled into too many small things.
Boy, isn't that true? It's so easy to get to have your focus deterred to something else.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's one tool, app, or resource that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
So I use a sort of a task management automation tool called ClickUp a lot. I can't manage without ClickUp. It does everything for me. It helps me to focus on what I need to do. I produce a podcast as well, so I spend my time sort of using that to help organize and automate the podcast production. I use it in order to be able to sort of remind me of people that I need to contact. It gives me a list of things I've got to worry about. And, one of the things that really does do is it helps to free up time to do the other things that we've just talked about, the things that I think I need to do every day in order to keep my business moving forward.
Awesome. So is ClickUp a CRM, or is it?
Yes, it does have CRM things in it, but it's really just an automation tool. It just allows you to set up lists, boards that allow you to actually view where you are in the status of various projects. It's more like a sort of project management tool, I guess.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So do you have daily habits?
Gosh, yes.
Help you stay focused and productive? Good
Yeah.
daily habits.
Good daily habits. So I've mentioned that I'm a scientist. Although he was a different branch of science to the one that I was in, I'm a fan of Richard Feynman, who was involved in early days of the things like the nuclear physicist, and he gave a series of things that he used in order to drive his days, and I kind of copy a lot of that. And he said things like, you need to starve your distractions and feed your focus. Every day you need to set goals, and every day you should read. He said you need to recognize that time is not refundable, so you need to use it with intention. He said that you need to have a vision every day and live inspired. And he also said, if you don't go after it, you won't have it. So for me, those are the things that I sort of do. I read every single day. I read things from books, but I also read business articles. I'm a great fan of reading some great business articles. But I make sure that every day I know that I have got 3 top items. At the beginning of every day, I set 3 things I know I have to do that day to move my business forward. And I focus on making sure they're done by the end of the day. If other things don't happen, terrific. If I get them done by 11 o'clock in the morning, I've got the rest of the day free because I've done my top things that day. So making sure you've got that. I have identified the top things that I need to do to move my business forward today. Get them done by 11 o'clock in the morning. The rest of the day is yours. You can do what you like with it.
That's awesome. I as well identify my big 3 goals every day. And most of I use the full focus planner to get mine done.
Okay. Yeah.
And most days I get them done.
That's
Not
good news.
not every day though.
Well, even if you get them done 2 days out of 3, that's better than most people who have no plan whatsoever and
Right.
don't even know what they're supposed to achieve that day. By just identifying, even if you identify just one thing to do that day and you get that done, that's a huge step forward over 99.9% of solopreneurs I've met.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's one mindset shift that made a significant difference in your business and your success?
Well, I guess the one mindset thing that I really had to get my head around was the fact that just I thought when I first left science, none of the stuff that I had done before applied to my life. Now that I decided not to do it, and I kind of threw all of that away and thought, business is all about being completely unstructured, doing wild and wacky things, and stuff just sort of magically happens. And as I said, the first couple of businesses that I started was involved in were disasters because of that problem, because I genuinely thought that my job was no longer structured. The mindset shift that I really sort of felt gave me some help was thinking, hang on a minute, by nature I'm a scientist. I do testing. I test a theory and I come up with a new theory based upon the results of my tests. So why don't I start doing that? Why don't I set a process up and I just go ahead and if I want to test it, I change one variable and see what happens. And that's how I conducted my scientific experiments. And I'd been pretty successful at doing that. I had a number of, the bachelor's and the master's, the doctorates and all this sort of thing. I'd presented papers at international conferences. I'd been successful doing it. So I obviously knew how to do it. So why not do that and then use that theory to drive a business? It was taking that attitude that eventually meant I was successful in the business that I grew from that.
That's really amazing, Stuart.
Well, it was a difficult few weeks as I sort of worked it out, Donna. It was one of those sort of how could I have been so dumb that I didn't see this before moments. You sit there and you go, how come this wasn't so obvious? But it wasn't obvious at the time. It was really quite. It was really as almost as if somebody had suddenly turned on a light bulb. It was sort of one of those. How was I so silly not to see that this is the secret to driving a business forward? Why did nobody tell me? And I had some good mentors around me, but none of them sat down and said, you've got some great skills. Why have you thrown them all away? Why have you just abandoned them all? And it was by taking me through that journey that eventually that, it clicked in my head. There was the secret to my success. I just had to apply it.
Amazing. So I'm glad that you did that. Um, sometimes it's the thing that's right in front of us that we just don't see it. We trip over it.
Yeah, we do. We do. And it's a shame that it takes us that long. So often these are things which are, common. People will turn around and say, well, it was right in front of me and I never saw it. Yeah, for me, this was right in front of me. Never, ever saw it. Never even thought to look for it. And it was great when I eventually fell over it.
That's good. All right. So what's one piece of advice you'd give someone that's just starting their solopreneur journey?
This is something that I think is going to be hard for a lot of people to actually think, but a lot of people are trying to do something that they enjoy. And I don't think business owners should do something they enjoy. I think they should do something they're good at. People pay you for your skills, for what you're good at doing. And you need to learn to monetize what you're good at. Don't try and do something you enjoy. Doing something you enjoy is a hobby. And doing something you enjoy is something that most people can't actually turn around and monetize anyway. I enjoy singing. Nobody is going to pay to hear me sing, but I enjoy doing it. But I am good at things that I've just described. I'm good at helping people put systems. I'm good at helping getting them into a position where they can scale their business because of the right processes and things like that in their business. People pay for that, but what they won't do, that's not something that I can turn around and say, hey, this is a love of my life, but it's something I'm good at. So if you're good at something, people will pay for it because they recognize the value that you bring by having that expertise. Just because you enjoy it, that is not something that you necessarily. And I know a lot of people have started businesses because they enjoy doing something, and then they say, I can't monetize it. And the answer is, it's not necessarily because you're not good at it. Maybe you're brilliant, but it's a hobby. So don't try and turn your hobby into a business. It is often more complex than that.
Stuart, I've never heard anyone say that thing. What I've heard throughout my career is do what you're passionate about.
Passion is different to enjoyment, though, isn't it? If passion is often something you're good at because you recognize your own skill. You recognize the fact that you're good at doing it. But doing something that you enjoy is something that you're doing for yourself, not for other people. And we go back to my beginning thing, which is when you are looking to grow a business, you need to do something where you say, I have a solution to your problem, and I know how to make your problem go away with my solution. Now, it's difficult to match that with something which is a hobby or something you enjoy. You have to go back to the fact that you have a solution. Now, okay, you could, and this is where I would say, you could be very passionate about that solution because you recognize that when you take that solution and you put it into place, you watch other people get transformed by your solution. And that's where I believe passion comes in. Enjoyment is something for you. You could turn around and say, I enjoy lying on a beach. But that's different to being passionate about it. Passion is about where you see a problem and you solve it because of what you're able to do. That's where you're good at.
Perfect. Thank you. So do you have any exciting projects or launches coming up that you'd like to share?
So I'm always I've been asked recently to do a number of speaking engagements, and I've just been asked if I could MC somebody's sort of event. So I had never expected to become somebody that was going to start speaking. So I'm just in the process of starting to put that together. So I've just started doing that. So you may see me around doing strange talks about this, and I consider it a privilege if people want to come and listen to me witter on for a while. I go back to I used to stand up in front of students, used to stand up in front of conference halls and tell them about what I discovered scientifically. That was very dry and boring. Now I'm trying to tell people about the interesting things about how they can make their business even more interesting and exciting. So, that is something that I'm just beginning to understand that I might actually be passionate about because it really inspires people to get on with it.
And because they're inspired, it inspires you.
Well, it maybe it makes me recognize they've got problems and I've got solutions, and if I can help, then that's what this is about.
Absolutely. Okay, where can people connect with you and learn more about what you do?
So you can always find me on LinkedIn. I'm on linkedin.com/IM/Stuart Webb. So it's just Stuart Webb, STUARTWEBB. Not quite the same as the World Wide Web, but similar. So that's Stuart Webb, STUARTWEBB. Or you can find me at my website, which is www.SYSTMISE, SYSTEMISE.me, systemize.me.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. So
Thank
if you
you.
didn't catch it, it'll be there for you. All right, Stuart, thank you so much for being with me today. I certainly appreciate it.
Donna, it's been really fabulous, and thank you for having me come and talk at you for the last few minutes. I'm sorry that I talk far too much. Please shut me up.
Okay, I'm going to turn the recording off now, and you'll be done.
Thank you very much. Nice to have spoken with you.
Thank you. You too.